This event after a couple of years break. So I've been asked to give an overview of what we're actually seeing in terms of the long-haul travel recovery. So starting off with a picture of what's happening in terms of global travel recovery. I think this is some data that should be relatively familiar to most people. This is the latest UNWTO barometer we're looking at here, and we can see that 2022 was really a year of rebound in international travel. 2021, we started to see some growth, but that was mainly focused on domestic travel. But it's 22 was where we started to see international really picking up, and it was notable around the world once we got through sort of the Omicron scare of just over a year ago. There were some issues clearly along the way. We had some capacity constraints, we had some staff shortages, and so some of that demand was a little bit constrained, but we can see we finished the year very strongly, second half of the year much stronger than the first. Europe, in the last few months of the year, only 15% down on 2019 levels. Very promising growth elsewhere. Asia Pacific opening up, travel growth beginning there as well. And what we're seeing in terms of bookings, we're seeing in terms of traveller confidence and business confidence, that people really wanted to get back out and travel. We heard before about that sort of the pent-up demand. People really wanted to get out and travel. Quote here from Expedia, seeing that people prioritising travel over just about everything. I think that's a quote that really stands out to me. Demand's high, planes are full, according to them. But unfortunately, we have to throw a but in there. I am here as an economist. Economists famously have two hands. We always say on the other hand. So this time, on the other hand, there is a lot of uncertainty about economic growth and uncertainty about what the future holds for travel. So this is it's quite instructive to look at what's happening in terms of the wider economy, in terms of what's happening to consumer spending. It's got up on this chart here. Travel spending sits within wider basket of total travel spending. And in normal times, you can see on this chart here leading up to 2019, you can see that spending moves in line with earnings, with some offset from inflation that sort of erodes that spending power. This all changed in 2020. People were limited in what they could do. They couldn't get out and travel, they couldn't get out and spend. So what we saw instead was that spending being cut, travel spending being cut, and instead that money went into savings. So the big negative grey bar on here is sort of an inverted savings. That means huge accumulation of excess savings. 21 and 22, we've seen then the rebound in spending, rebound in travel. That's partly been driven by what we've seen in terms of incomes recovering, earnings recovering, but it's been undermined by the big concern. It's inflation has been creeping up. It's been the big worry for everyone when we're looking at the global economy. But there has been that cushion, that excess savings has been supporting this pent-up demand for travel, among other spending, and that's really driven the growth that we have seen to date. Now, looking at 2023, we do have several concerns. There's an economic downturn, recession in many countries. It is because of this inflation. Inflation's coming down, but it is remaining high. It's undermining a lot of that earnings, a lot of that spending power. But still, we are seeing some degree of savings supporting that continued pent-up demand. People still wanting to get out and travel. It's just not quite as rosy a picture as we had before. Slightly slower growth. So what this means by travel for Europe, different hauls. So split it up here by, we're looking at short hauls, that's travel to your more immediate neighbours. See, that's the largest segment of travel within Europe. Also the fastest to recover last year, just 17% down on 2019 levels for the year as a whole. And we do expect to see some continued growth, but some softening. There is that bit of caution we've got in our outlook. Mid-haul, that's slightly longer haul travel within Europe. Also relatively quick to come back, but still lagging. We've got to note that within this segment we have the majority of Russian travel to Western Europe, which is obviously going to remain low for obvious reasons. So we can't be looking at that for growth. It's this final segment that we are now looking at for seeing the growth this year. It's the long haul travel. Unfortunately, this was most hit. It was only still 43% down on 2019 levels last year. Still a long way to go, but we do expect some relatively rapid recovery, more rapid recovery this year. Not back fully to levels, still sort of probably around 20-25% down for the year in our relatively cautious outlook, but it is still going to be the biggest driver of growth for this year. And this is really important for destinations. It does look like it was one of the smaller segments, but in 2019 it accounted for 22% of arrivals to Europe. And when you factor in all other attributes of these travellers, you can see the real importance of long-haul travel. These travellers stay longer, they spend more. So it accounted for 25%, a full quarter of all travel measured in terms of nights within Europe, back in the pre-pandemic peak. And this is starting to come back, and it will grow and drive that more medium-term growth. Individual markets, just to call out quickly, so we are seeing this being led by transatlantic travel, splitting the world up into some major long-haul travel blocks and some of the forecasts we do here with IATA. You can see transatlantic travel has been the real success story, really going to be driving that growth for recovery. This year, US travel in 2022 to Europe was around 80% of its pre-pandemic peak, so not a huge amount of shortfall to make up, similar to some of the shorter haul markets. Some of the same concerns that mentioned about the inflation, economic downturn for US, so we think more moderate pace of growth, but it will recover. Potentially later this year, but definitely by 2024 we see US travel coming back in a very big way. Beyond that, so some of the longer haul markets, Asian markets, were a little bit more cautious. You can see this in some of the Australian growth. Australia opened up pretty widely early last year, and it wasn't an immediate rebound, more gradual rebound throughout the year. There's been a bit of a more of a psychological impact there as the country's been shut for longer, so we've seen a more moderate pace of recovery. And we expect to see that elsewhere, including in China, China being sort of one of the biggest long-haul markets outside of US. We're very cautious in our forecast here, talking to some other people. I know there's a lot more optimism around it. We're also seeing there's a lot of uncertainty, so we're putting different projections, but we think sort of at best China getting back to around 50% of 2019 levels in terms of its outbound travel in 2023. But this travel will come. There is the desire to travel. They just need to get over a lot of speed bumps in terms of processing and issuing visas, getting the capacity back in place as well for travel, and having the available funds to do that travel. It will take time. I think 2025 is when we'll see the recovery from that market, but very relatively moderate this year. So just to finish off, just put up here a scatter plot of the growth, how recovered each market is up on the y-axis against its size on the x-axis. So you can see the importance of USA clearly here. It accounted for around a quarter of all long-haul travel to Europe in 2019. Very important market. We expect that growth to continue. China being one of the next largest markets, around 10% of all long-haul, but that more moderate pace of growth. Then there's a group of other markets and some that are showing some really rapid growth. So Brazil, India stand out there as being some that are, did very well in years to 2022. We're looking to see some relatively strong growth this year, but we do need to bear in mind that these are relatively small. Brazil, just 3% of long-haul travel. India, around 5% of long-haul travel. But these markets will come, they are necessary, and they will deliver growth into the medium term.